educator, I just know that our students, the health and safety of our students and our teachers and our staff is our first priority. And since we just started school this week, we really wanted to let the community get some answers from Dr. Spence. I'm also thrilled to have Regina Johnson, Dr. Regina Johnson here. She is a candidate for the at-large school board position, and Miss Audrey Gibbons, who is our candidate for District 5 school board. So I really want to thank all of you for participating, and we're going to get started so that we can get as many answers and issues addressed as we can. So Dr. Spence, we really appreciate you coming today. And I guess the first thing is school started on Thursday. Why don't you tell us about how it went and if there was any concerns or issues that you were worried about?
Well, Thursday went great. I was worried about the mask, the kids wearing the mask. I was worried about having parents complain about that. We had one parent the entire day complain that we were making their child wear a mask. And that's pretty good when you're talking about 10, 11,000 students. But it was that day, and we got complaints before, but that very day, we had a couple parents complain that we would not let them into school. But, you know, we're trying to make it as a safe environment as possible by only allowing teachers and staff and students in the building, so that I feel like the fewer people we allow in the building, the better chance we have to make the safest environment. And so we had some folks complaining about that, and I can understand that. I certainly can. And we made provisions by allowing the teachers during the planning to come meet with some of the parents, and we had a separate location not near the students so that the people could get to know the teachers. And so folks can still meet with teachers. They just need to set up an appointment so we can get in a safe place with the teachers, not allowing them all the way into the building. But Thursday went well. As always, the first day of school, you're going to have transportation issues. So we had some kids getting home at 5:45, 6 o'clock, but we got them home. And I always say the first day, you want to get them in this building, get them fed, and get them home. If you can do that the first day of school, then you've done something good as a principal. And we did that. We did it again today. The buses were a little smoother. We had one kid out on Myers Hill Road. He was an autistic kid, and he missed the bus. And the bus driver thought he got on, and he didn't. And once we realized he hadn't gotten on, we had to go find him. But we found him, and he was okay. And he was very sorry. He was taken, like it was his fault. And he was crying, but we got him to Risley Middle, and things are fine now, or actually Satilla Marsh. We did have one positive case of COVID at Glen Academy. We found out about it this morning. The young lady had tested positive. She took her test on Wednesday. And the thing is when you take a test, you're supposed to wait until you get the results. But she didn't do that. And so we had to quarantine 37 students at Glen Academy, her and 36 others. Who were around her when we did our contract tracing. And so that's where we're at. As far as the mask, though, I told you guys earlier, we only had 4 students that I personally saw without a mask, but we asked them to put them on, and that was no problem. And so overall, I think the first 2 days of school probably went better than I would have imagined. And so I'm very pleased right this second as I speak to you.
Is the young lady okay? Is she?
Yeah, she has no symptoms. So
okay.
She was applying for a job, and she was supposed to work this weekend, and she took the test. That's what happened. And so they said, you got to take the test if you're going to work this weekend.
So when that happens, when there is 37 students that have been exposed, then how long do they have to stay out? Do they have to have a negative test before they come back? How is that working?
Okay. And I've said this a bunch of times, we're using guidance from the Department of Public Health, from the Georgia Department of Education, and from the governor's office. Our main guidance, though, comes from the Department of Public Health. And so they've kind of had the final say-so in anything. And so we've developed a rubric based on what they're saying. They have a 43-page document that tells you what to do. So you have to kind of go through that and read all the small print. And so we've developed a document, and the student stays out 14 days from the test and the date of the test. And the other students have to stay out 14 days from the time they are close to that student, from the first time they're close to that student. And so, yeah, they're going to miss the 14 days. So
now, if they have symptoms during those 14 days, are they required to have a negative test before they come back?
Now, if they have symptoms during that 14 days, then they have to go 10 days from the time of symptoms. However, they can have a negative test. See, if you have a negative test during that 14-day period, it's still not going to shorten that time because of the time it takes. The incubation period, there's a time there. But if they have symptoms, then yes, and they're going to have 10 days, but they can take a test at that point in time.
Okay, all right.
So it doesn't extend it 10 more days. And so it's just kind of a flow chart that we look at. Things happen at school, things happen at home, and we just try to stay in communication with the parents.
Okay. Well, I know, Audrey Gibbons, you have been a parent and you're also a grandparent and you're a candidate for school board. You had to send your grandkids off to school this week. So what were your concerns and how did that look for you?
I think the majority of parents, including myself, safety was the major concern. Will the children wear a mask? Will they do social distancing? What would be the class sizes? What would be the setting, the daily schedule? When would they take temperatures? Would they take temperatures when they leave home and sometime throughout the day while they're in school? So, and then another concern was the reopening options. We had face-to-face versus and also virtual. So when we look at the students who selected to go face-to-face and the students who selected to go virtual, the students who select to go virtual, do they have all the resources that they would need? Are their parents prepared to make sure they stay focused? Are they aware that they will be, it will be much different than it was in March when they went virtual? They will be in periods, class, first, second, third period. So they'll be there basically from 8 to 3:30 on virtual learning, break for lunch or what have you. And then the other thing was communication resources. How do we access our teachers? Doing, especially with the kindergarten students, they touchy, and all of them want to touch and hug. So it's going to be challenging for the teachers to communicate and for the parents to say, well, little John is touchy. Or I use my grandson, Larry Love is touchy. He need to be embraced. He need that reassurance. So how are we going to communicate? I understand we're not allowing the parents in the building to cut down on the traffic, but at the same time, we got to make sure we have open communication. Open house and orientation was virtual. We were able to ask questions. I thought it would be nice if we would have had a virtual picture of the school. This is first grade hall, second grade hall, third grade hall, whatever. So you could get an idea of which hall your child was going down that morning. Also, I thought about, did we consider having staggered schedule, half a day? A group come in first 3 hours in the morning, then another group come in after lunch. So all these things was a concern, but mostly was safety issue in the class sizing. Are we going to be able to do that social distancing? Are our children going to be able to wear that mask, 6 hours per day? Because I think it's only periodically they could take the mask off, and I guess just for a breather while they're eating lunch or doing their snacks. So those was my concerns as we prepared for 2021 school year.
That's a lot of issues and concerns. I know one of the things you talked about was safety. And Dr. Spence, you said that when a couple of the students earlier when we were talking didn't have masks, the teachers were able to provide them. So do we have enough masks and resources for the teachers and students to be able to keep them safe?
As far as masks go, I was a little worried whenever we decided to mandate masks. I didn't think we had enough, but I will say that our community, they came to us and brought us far more masks than I thought. And not only that, but when I walked around the schools on Thursday morning, every kid was getting out of cars and getting off the bus with masks. And so they already had their masks. And so we have masks in case they forget them. Some kids had extra masks. I'm so happy that our parents just supported our decision overwhelmingly to have the students wear a mask. And I know there's going to be times when little Johnny's going to forget his mask and he's not going to have one, but we have over 60,000 masks that we can provide to students, and 15,000 of those masks are cloth masks that they can reuse. And so at this point, that is not a problem. It may become a problem if this thing extends into December, January, February, who knows? And so we'll just have to do what we have to do and get them. Right now, hand sanitizer may become an issue because we have some hand sanitizer stations and we have gallons and gallons. Actually, we have 2,700 gallons of hand sanitizer. And so, I don't think we're running through that too fast, but people are asking about donations, and it would be hand sanitizer and bottled water right now because we're still waiting on our fill-up machines to come. There was a back order when we ordered them about a month ago, and we still don't have them. And so while some of our schools have them, not all. And so we're trying to get bottled water to those children. So, if someone wants to do something, certainly right now it would be hand sanitizer and bottled water, the small bottles for the elementary kids mainly.
And if they wanted to donate some of those items, where should they drop it off? At the individual schools?
Well, I think it's best if we take them to the warehouse. I don't know if you know Tim Long in the warehouse. He's keeping our supplies, and we've already told them that if we get water donations, we're going to take them to the schools that don't have the water dispensers because we had to shut our water fountains down. But over by the stadium on Emory Dawson Boulevard is our warehouse, and if you drop them off there, then Tim Long will store them, and then the principals can get it. Right now, our elementary schools have water, but we may run out before those machines get here.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. Johnson is running for our at-large school board on the Democratic ticket. I know you were concerned about access to technology, Dr. Johnson. Would you like to ask Dr. Spence a question?
Thank you, Dr. Spence. Thank you once again for your leadership in our community to grow, lead, and excel our students in Glynn County. So again, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to have conversation with you this evening. One of my concerns is that of disproportionate equal access, disproportionate access to technology, especially when I look at the numbers of approximately 3,000, a little over 3,000 students who have chosen a virtual platform. So to what extent is there a need for upgrading our access to technology for all students in our Glynn County school system?
Okay, well, let me first say, I've been superintendent for about a month and 21 days. So I will say that. But we do not have enough mobile devices for every student in Glynn County to have one. Everyone needs to understand that, first of all. Okay. And so in most of our schools, no, not even most, probably all of our schools, when we use those Chromebooks, we have to take them to a room and use them and then move them. So we have carts that take them around because we don't have enough for every student. When we closed schools last February or March, we gave Chromebooks that were bought by local money to, and I'm trying to say this right, we made sure that as many students as possible had Chromebooks that were bought by local money, because we were under the impression, or the people then at that point were under the impression, that we could not use Chromebooks and lend them out to students that were purchased with federal money. Well, about 3 or 4 days ago, we found that we can do that. There's a form we have to fill out. So that opened up more technology to those students. So I think we're in a better position to be able to provide technology to those students who don't have it than we were 3 or 4 days ago, because we didn't know that loophole existed. Second, it's not just the Chromebooks, it's the internet access, because that Chromebook's not doing any good without internet access. So we know that's a problem. But we all, and so those are the two problems. And I guess your next question is, what am I going to do about it?
Yes. How are we going to address the access to the internet? Do you have plans for hotspots or collaborating with other businesses in our community to provide that access?
There have been a few people that contacted us and asked us, if you need this, let us know, we can do it. Well, and I don't want to say any names, but one person's already called and said, hey, tell people to quit calling us, I can't do anymore. And so, and I get it, and that's fine. But as far as hotspots, we have 10 mobile hotspots on the way that we can put up on top of school buses and take them to separate locations in our community. And so if we go to complete shutdown, if something happens and we have to shut down and everyone goes to distance learning, we would probably be able to get internet access to the vast majority of our kids at some point during the school day, whether it be put those on top of our schools or take the bus and put it in the neighborhoods. you have to understand it's more than just maybe, like right in here around where I'm at. There are folks out in the Automobile Park that don't have access, and you're talking 4 or 5 kids. And then you go out on some of the further parts of the county, out off near Brownville. I mean, there's people probably don't have it either. And so that's
And
not going to
Zuda.
cure all the problems, but it certainly would cure most of them.
Thank you. So you address the hardware, that's the laptops and the Chromebooks and that access. You talked about how providing the hotspots for our students who live a distance or may not be able to afford that. What other things are you doing to strategize to help us, especially if we have to go into a total virtual learning?
Okay, let me make a difference here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we have virtual learning. Those are the people that have chosen to be virtual, and there are several ways that we're delivering that model. It's according to what level, what type of class you want it, and we have face-to-face. If we close schools, then we would have what we call distance learning.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get and we want to keep that separate because and I'll come back. Let me explain what distance learning is right now. So those 37 kids that had to be quarantined from Glen Academy today,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be distance learners while they're quarantined. So they're going to keep up with their teacher's website. Our teachers are making videos every day of their instruction. So those students will be able to go on their teacher's website, log into Google Classroom, and see that video. And then they'll be able to see the assignment and turn that assignment in via Google Classroom. And they'll be able to email or call their teacher at some point, probably during their planning, and ask questions if they have. So that's distance learning. Virtual learning is the ones who've already chosen to be on virtual, and then face-to-face. So I wanted to clarify that. So now let's say we have to shut down the entire system because of COVID. If we have to shut down, then the people who are on virtual will stay that way because of the way it's offered. The people who are on, the rest of the students will be distance learning, and they will follow the process that we have in place, like just as if a kid was at home sick. So if a kid can miss 2 days, they can keep up with the class. A kid can miss 14 days to keep up with the class. A kid can miss the rest of the year. The only thing different is there would be a time during the day where each teacher would be like we are right now with that class and be able to answer questions, and we would call that the feedback session. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay. Now, we would then take our school buses, and we would, for kids who are saying way out in the country that had no access, that we just couldn't get it, because we're going to have some school buses just at different locations around with those Wi-Fi devices on them. We would take our school buses and run our routes distributing food for the kids who needed food. That would not only would that get food to those kids, but it would keep our cafeteria workers working, our bus drivers working, our custodians, because our parapros, because we would put our parapros on those buses with any resources that those teachers needed to get to those students. So we have a plan in place, because you want to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But we're prepared for the worst.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I call you the other day?
You most certainly did.
Okay, I thought so. Yes,
I thank
Julie,
you
I
for
do.
returning my call, being
Okay.
receptive to my call.
You live in Fairway Oaks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I
tell
most certainly
everybody.
do.
I don't. How many people are on here? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought I called you.
Right, Audrey, did you have some follow-up questions about how the students are going to be held accountable for academic progress on virtual?
Yes, and I also include that in my opening statement, because a lot of students are aware that it was like it was in March, just hit and miss. But I think they're being held more accountable. So how are virtual group learning activities going to work? And how are the students going to be held accountable for the academic progress?
You know, the very first day of school, I was in a classroom. I was in a 3rd grade classroom, and it looked something like this. And the teacher was teaching, and the kids were around, and she could see the kids. And so right then she could ask questions, and they could speak back and forth. I also saw a kindergarten class where I bet the teacher said 30 times, mute your mic, mute your mic, mute your mic. Where's your mom? She's in the bedroom. Mute your mic. And it's okay. The kids will learn. But we're going to hold them accountable for the grades, because they're going to turn assignments in. Because if you can see this, then you can fill out that form that we have. There's no need to print it off. You don't need a printer. All of our assignments are going to be on a Google form where it comes straight back to the teacher. So it's just email back and forth. Every kid in the Glenn County school system has a Google email address that is assigned based on their student number, and then we provide a password. And the kids that are online know that. The kids that came back face to face, we've already told them that, so that if we do have to close down, we can immediately go to that situation. And so they're held accountable just like the other students for the grades and for the assignments.
Okay, so it'd be the same standard for the virtual learning as the classroom face-to-face.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. One of a parent is asking this question. I know we're concerned with social distancing about class size, and some of the class sizes at some of the schools are still over 30. I know that's always a problem, but during a pandemic, obviously it's more of a problem. Are there plans to try to address that, Dr. Spence?
Well, you remember from being a registrar at Glen Academy, we would have class sizes sometimes 47, and I would come straight to your office and say, what's going on? And we would get it right. Same thing here. We're trying our best to get it right, but you got to remember something. We left the line open for students to choose virtual about 2 weeks longer than we said. Then after the board said we're going to mandate masks, I left it open all the way until the day before school. And so our registrars, I want you to think about this now for a second, Julie. As a registrar, you would have been mad at me because I'm leaving it open that long. You're trying to balance classes. Well, so were our principals, so were our registrars, so were our counselors. They were trying to balance those classes up until the last second. So yes, there are some large classes because people were moving in and out up until the last minute. We're going to try our best to make those class sizes as small as possible.
Sure, it makes it more difficult with almost $1 billion in cuts this year to education. Are any of the CARE Act money being able to help to be able to get more staff or help with any of those situations?
The CARE Act money, the first thing that the CARE Act money has to take into account is when every teacher, every staff member, the CARE Act money pays for 10 days of pay. So if you have to go out with a COVID-related problem, then that CARE Act money funds that first 10 days. That's a lot of money if we lose a lot of folks. So we have to kind of keep that in balance and hold it. But yes, we can spend that money on those things like you're saying. But what if we run out of money? You know, then we're really in trouble.
I had another question from a parent. They opted for virtual learning. And so they are in a class, their student is in a class with students from other elementary schools. If at the end of 9 weeks, they want to transition back into the school, it's an elementary school, what does that look like? Since they're in a virtual class, basically at another elementary school, do they transition back to their home school?
Absolutely, they would transition back to their home school. The reason we did that, I want you to think about this. So say you have 4 teachers and one of them is going to be your virtual teacher, okay? And so now there's only 8 kids from that school in 4th grade that want to be virtual. But you got this school over here with 8 kids. So you combine them and make 16 kids. The teacher should be teaching the same thing anyway, because we should all be teaching the Georgia Standards of Excellence. And so in lieu of overcrowding these other 3 classes, you combine those and now you got a half of a teacher here and a half of a teacher there. So that's what we had to do, is we had to think outside the box so that we didn't have 35 elementary students sitting in a face-to-face class and 8 virtual students sitting in a virtual class. But yes, they would be brought back into their zone school.
Okay. Another question we had was, how are the needs of the students, especially in regards to student services, counseling, mental health issues at the school, and for our virtual students, how is that being addressed?
You know, one of the things I said to our principals, and I wrote it in a letter to our staff, is that the first thing we need to make sure of is we need to make sure that we're taking care of these students emotionally and socially and maintaining their health, because these kids have been out of school for over 150 days. And in a lot of instances, they have not been very well structured. They might not be getting the proper nourishment, probably not taken care of in the way they should. And so our teachers need to first make sure that that's taking place before we start worrying about, hey, you got to pass this test. The test thing can come later, but if these kids aren't emotionally stable and if they're not ready for a structured environment, there's nothing we can do. So we have to take care of that first. So it's not just the counselors, it's not just the social workers, it's the teachers, it's everyone in the building trying to make sure that these kids are okay and ready to start school.
Okay, I got a follow-up on the question from another parent. Some of the elementary virtual school classes are only from 8 to 11. And is that, when you're like in a second grade class, are you supposed to have virtual classes all day long, or is 8 to 11 about normal?
I need to know what school that is, because it's not all day long, first of all, because the kids don't go to class all day long. And you know from being in high school with me, there's a certain amount of minutes that are required. Well, they're not going to lunch. They're probably not going and playing with their friends for recess. So when we talk about virtual school, we're using up those minutes that the state says you have to mandate. And the rest of the time, the rest of the time is kind of like it is in school. There's other things going on besides just sitting in a classroom and learning. And so, I'm not sure about the 8 to 11. You'd have to tell me what school that is, and you don't have to say it out here. But that's dead. That's the instructional time that is required from the state of Georgia.
Okay. So if the parent had a question about that, who should they contact? Their school counselor?
The principal.
Principal? Okay. All right. Okay, Dr. Johnson, did you have another question?
I did, and it's in reference to the digital divide again. We've got the internet access taken care of. We've gotten the hardware taken care of. Now there's an educational piece. I realize that many parents, I'm not going to say parents, I'm going to say grandparents are doing the virtual platform with their grandchildren. And so there's a missing educational piece that I'm hearing from the community for grandparents and elders and aunts and uncles to support. So what are we doing? Is that a part of the plan to assist parents with grandparents with the virtual platform and helping their students?
No, the only thing I can say is I've known some instructional coaches have talked to parents and walked them through the process. And so I know that, and it's just going to have to be a situation that if they're having trouble, they need to contact the school, and the school can have a teacher contact them. The actual teacher that's doing the virtual can contact them and walk them through, because we didn't put teachers who are not savvy in a technological way. We put some of our best teachers who are savvy and they understand how that's supposed to work. So that teacher, if the parent or grandparent would contact that teacher, then that teacher should be able to walk them through the process. We're here to support, we're here to support the parents and the grandparents and the students. But if we don't know there's a problem, there's not a whole bunch we can do. And also, let me say this, the very first day of school, we were just trying to get folks in the building and do the best we could to make sure we knew who they were. We made sure they got to the right class, and especially at the younger age, made sure they got to the lunchroom, because everything has changed. We don't have a cafeteria full of kids. We're just kind of walking them through real slow and making sure they get something to eat, spread out in some areas. Most of the time, though, they're going back to the class to eat. So those teachers are spending a lot of time with that early on. Probably as the year goes on, the next week or two, they'll be able to spend more time doing what you're asking.
My last question is in relationship to staff and how we're supporting staff in this season of transition and new development. I'm certain, as a retired educator, I can imagine the stresses that many of our staff are going through as they navigate this new thing of learning. So how are we supporting our staff in the wake of these major changes?
I think that mandating the mask was a big thing. Mandating the mask for the students was a big way to support our staff. That certainly made lots of our teachers feel better. So there's one. Our central office staff has been in and out of schools these past 2 days. I mean, we have just swarmed the schools and letting the teachers, letting the principals, letting the assistant principals, the instructional coaches, library specialists, everyone, secretaries, letting them know that we're here to support them. When our phone rings, we answer it. We're there to help them. One thing I am concerned about is I know that our teachers are working harder than normal. I realize that because they have to put in more, they're putting in more effort. And so I am concerned about some burnout that may occur in 3 to 4 weeks. And so I may talk to the board about possibly reducing some time or having a virtual day or something. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be, but I am aware that there is a possibility that our teachers are going to burn out. And I don't want that to happen. I want to try to find some way to alleviate that pressure from them, because trust me when I tell you, they are working hard.
Thank you. As a candidate for the at-large post too, my question is, how can the board most effectively help you as our chief instructional leader?
I think one thing that our board does is I think there needs to be open lines of communication with the superintendent and each board member. And there needs to be a support system between each board member and the superintendent, but it has to go both ways. And as a superintendent, I need to respect everyone on that board's opinion and be able to listen to their concerns, because your concerns are from your constituents, and someone else's concerns might be from their constituents. I can't play the political game. I have to listen to everyone. I can't just worry about the people that put me in office, because those 7 board members put me in office and this community supported that. And so I think as a board member, you need to take into account your constituents, but you also need to think about everyone else around the county, and then be supportive with the superintendent back and forth.
It's a team effort.
That's exactly,
Yes.
It's called team governance.
Collaborative.
You're going to learn that when we go to, y'all going
In November.
That's right. You've already won. It's going to be hard for you to lose.
Dr. Spence.
Yes, ma'am.
Please address how sports and the other extracurricular activities are being handled. I see in the Brunswick News today that McIntosh Academy, no issues. They're ready for football season. So what are we doing over here?
We're going to beat them, I can tell you that. But we're playing softball right now. We're playing volleyball right now. We're running cross country right now. I went and watched a softball game at Glen Middle the other day. The girls in the outfield had their masks on. The girls in the dugout had their masks on. And so our coaches had their masks on. So they're trying to do everything we can. Let me just back up a second. Can you imagine last spring when we shut down and those kids who had been working their entire life to be a senior and be on the baseball team or on the track team, it was just cut? That's awful. So our coaches and our players realize that. And they're trying to do everything they can to make this as positive an experience for our students. And so you ask about that, and I've been to football practice. They're trying to spread out. I've watched the band spreads out. They have their mask on. If they're playing horns, they spread out 20 or 30 feet and try and have to play their horns. So all of our extracurricular students, we're trying to maintain safety. We're trying to socially distance. We're trying to wear a mask. When your blood pressure, your heartbeat is not up there, you can wear that mask when you're in an environment around other kids, but you don't want to have it on when your heartbeat's up. So that's really what we're looking at. And we're taking the advice of the Georgia High School Association in conjunction with the Department of Public Health.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so I do think we'll be playing football, I hope.
So in football, they're actually going to let spectators come into the stands.
They're going to let about 40% into the stands, and that's far less than we had at graduation. I think we probably had the stands maybe all close to 50% full. So they're going to let 40%, and they're going to spread out. We're going to take the bands. Our band is going to be just about take up 1/3 of the entire home side. We're going to spread them out so much. Spreading the student section out is going to be difficult. We're going to try to do the best we can there and make them socially distanced. You know as well as I do how hard that's going to be. Outside, we're going to ask the fans. We're going to provide masks, and we're going to ask them to socially distance in their little clusters like we did with our graduations. So yeah, we're going to give it a shot.
Right, and you know me. I mean, I was a college athlete. I love sports, and I know what it means for students not be able to participate in sports or extracurricular activities. But some of the medical experts are saying that even though students may not get it and have as severe a case, they still may have damage to their lungs, long-term damage. So I guess, that's my concern. Yes, our kids want to play, but what if they get COVID, what's it going to do for them long term, I guess would be a concern.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave that one up to the doctors and the Georgia High School Association and the Department of Public Health to say yes or no. So
I have another question. I attended both graduations, Glen Academy and Brunswick High. Glen Academy Booster Club, they were distributing programs. They were selling fans, the whole 9 yards, even taking photo shoot. Brunswick High did not. Is there a reason why Brunswick High Booster Club is not activated?
you got to understand something. Glen Academy has been graduating outside since I became principal. So when I was the principal of Glen Academy, we always, not always, the first 2 years we graduated inside, but we always graduated outside there. And so they got used to that event, and it's something that they've always done. Brunswick High School has never graduated outside until this year. So that's the first year they done that. They really had no idea what to expect. And so that would be that reason.
But you don't think that's called communication and encouraging Brunswick High to have photo shoots and flowers? I mean, it was a flower shop that even allowed parents to purchase flowers at the last minute.
Yeah. You think Glen Academy is going to try to do something to help Brunswick High? How long you been around?
Yes, we're in. Yeah, we said from the beginning, we are in this together.
I understand. No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was thought of because they were just happy to have graduation, and it was the first time, and to my knowledge, that Brunswick High School's ever graduated outside in the history of that school. And so it was new to everyone. And so,
nobody thought outside the box.
Well, at Glen Academy,
I'm sure that a faculty member from Brunswick High attended a Glen Academy graduation in the past.
Yes.
And I'm sure they saw how it was set up.
Right.
It just wasn't fair to the students. When they came in, Glenn did it first. So the next day with Brunswick High, no photo shoot, no flowers, no fans, no t-shirts. You know, they had a digital program. Glen Academy had a printed program.
I understand. Again, Glen Academy's had a lot of years to develop that. That didn't just, the first year Glen Academy had a graduation outside, it just didn't happen that way.
Okay.
Yeah. They had to develop that over time.
Okay, I have another question from the community. I think we've already answered this, but have all middle and high school students been given the option of taking virtual, some of their classes virtual, or they have to either go all virtual or all in person?
To my knowledge, they had to go all virtual or all in person.
All right, we have another question from the chat room. My son has teachers from 4 different schools virtually. Is that normal? I think you started to address that with having to group students together so you don't have to have large class sizes.
That would be, I would like to see that one. I would think 2 would be a max. I know that we have our math coordinator is teaching the accelerated math for middle school because there were so few of them. And so he's teaching that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that one. I would have to see that. So
Some research.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it would have to be probably either a middle or a high school to me.
Yeah, that would be very, 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 very rare.
Could it be someone with an IEP or EIP?
I think most of the kids that have IEPs are going to have people from their own school
Okay.
that are their case managers. Yeah, I don't know. I'd really love for that person to let me know who that child is. I'd like to see that. So, but that is definitely not normal to have 4 different teachers from 4 different schools, unless it's a high school student and they're taking Edgenuity, Georgia Virtual. So it could be that, Julie. That's the only thing it could be. So, I'd like to see that one.
Okay. So, Dr. Spence, how much has the budget cuts really affected? I mean, what would you like to see from the state legislature in relation to support and fully funding schools?
I would love to see the state legislature do their part and fully fund what they're supposed to be doing. As you know, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. the budget cuts, we knew going in that we were going to have some issues because it was, if you remember, it started off, it's going to be a 14% budget cut, and then it was going to be 12%, and then it ended up at like 9 or 10%. So it eased off a little bit. But in the meantime, what we were doing is we were not hiring folks in positions. For instance, I did not hire an assistant superintendent to take Dr. Poulos' spot because I figured there's a lot of money right there that we could keep and maybe spend on a teacher if we needed. There were some other places where we didn't hire, and we saved over $1 million by not doing that. And so the budget cuts, thankfully, because of that, the budget cuts didn't have that much of an impact on us.
Right, because really just a couple of years ago, the schools have only been fully funded for 2 years, and then we hit the pandemic, and there's a budget cut. I think that's important, why it's important to have an educator in the state legislature, but I'm a little biased on that. So, so we have another question. Let's see. In relation to how school board members help the superintendent, they're saying, how can the state do more to help schools? It's really about being able to fully fund the QBE and bring more funding to you guys. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, how can they restore funding to the schools? Another question is, in some counties across Georgia, they're labeling teachers as essential personnel. So when they get exposed to COVID, they don't have to be sent home. They can keep coming to school to teach. How will that be addressed in Glynn County, or is that even a possibility?
Right now, the governor is in the process of making that a mandate. And it's not if like today when we had the student that had tested positive, first of all, we're telling our teachers, especially at the middle and high school level, do not be within 6 feet of one child for 15 minutes, and that's considered direct exposure. And so we're telling our teachers not to do that. And so if they don't do that, then there's no way they're going to be in direct exposure. So there's no way they're going to have to sit out. There should be no way they're exposed if both people are wearing masks and both people are spread out. But in terms of critical workforce in Glen County right now, that is how we were considering our teachers, because that's what the Department of Homeland Security says, and the governor is about to say that everyone can do it.
And I think that's probably what, Georgia Association of Educators and PAGE and teachers are concerned about,
right,
with that issue, especially how that's going to be done. And they're concerned with their safety and actually their family's safety if they have to go home and
right. If they're not within 6 feet, then they should not be directly exposed. That's the deal there. Stay away, stay out. Both people wear their masks, stay outside of 6 feet. But I mean, certainly we're not going to tell a teacher who has symptoms to come back and teach. Certainly not that. I'm not going to do that. But we're not going to, if we start sending our teachers home, there's not much we can do. And so we're just saying, teachers, please do everything you can to stay outside of 6 feet for more, and don't get inside of 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And that's the direction we're getting from the Department of Public Health.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We are getting to the end of our forum, so I wanted to give Audrey and Dr. Johnson one more question if you have any, and if anyone else has a question they haven't posted in the chat room, if you'll do that now, we can ask our final questions.
I don't have a final question. Thank you, Dr. Spence, for your time. Thank you, Julie, for coordinating this. And Dr. Johnson, we're going to win November 3rd.
Thank you. Dr. Spence, again, thank you for being here. Audrey and Julie, thank you. I do have one last question, a sensitive one. And our community has been touched by the death of our student, a son of the city, a slain student, Ahmaud Arbery. It's caused a lot of hurt, and it's brought a lot of things to the attention of our community, of the injustices that exist. We have students that are returning to school, and they too have been affected either socially or emotionally by the injustices that exist within our society and in our community. I would like to know how we are addressing that, or do we have plans to address it as a system that is responsible for educating the whole child, the mind, the body, and the spirit.
I can take you back to my days as a high school principal, and Julie's going to know about these times. Every time we had a presidential election, there was issues. And so what I told the teachers at that time was, it's not for you to give your opinion on that matter. It's for you to listen to the kids and let them talk, let them learn how to talk their differences out. Because if they can't talk their differences out, then we're never going to grow from where we are now or where we were 20 years ago. So I'm not instructing our teachers to talk about the problems we're having in our society now. What I am telling them to is give the kids an opportunity to talk it out. Just like we're talking right now. We need to teach our kids that everyone's opinion is important, and we need to be able to listen to each other, respect each other, and live together. And so that, I hope that answered your questions, but I'm not telling, because I don't want adults trying to tell children the way they should think about certain issues. I want the children to be given an opportunity to talk about it.
Open discussion.
Yes. And if it comes up in class, then we let them discuss it. And not argue and yell, but the teacher should be a moderator. Hey, listen, let this kid have his opinion now, listen, so that we're all talking about it. You know, the things that are going on at Brunswick High School right now with the football team and with Coach Vaughn, that's pretty good stuff right now, because that has really brought that team together, and they're calling themselves a family, and they're acting like a family, and they're supporting one another. And I think that's just going to take over and move into the school and just do some really great things. I just think it has to start with the kids, not with the adults. I'm telling you, from a school leader standpoint, that's where change is going to be made.
We'll take one final question here. They were asking, or we might have time for two. This student is in 5th grade, has teachers from 4 different schools, and has an IEP. So they need to probably get in contact with you, Dr. Spence.
Pam McKinnon, for sure.
Oh, Pam, yeah.
Yeah, because I would like to see that one too myself. Yeah.
Okay, so so the parent that asked that, please contact Pam McKinnon, who is over special education services with the Glen County Schools, or Dr. Spence. One thing, First Coast News, I guess, was at one of the high schools yesterday, and students were seen visibly taking their mask off to huddle up and have social time. Why are they not being monitored and their temperatures being taken?
Was this at Glen Academy or Brunswick High School?
Yeah, Glen Academy.
Okay. You've worked at Glen Academy. It's almost impossible to monitor all those kids the entire time. So what we're trying to do is let them, that was probably during lunch, because we let them spread out during lunch, not sit in the cafeteria, all of them, but really spread out over the campus. And First Coast News was sitting on the outside of the fence by my office. So they probably, you know how those kids sit on the steps? That's probably what they saw. And I mean, you can't eat with the mask off. They have to take it off. And we're going to ask them to spread out. But to say that we're going to, most of our teachers are teaching during that time. Our administrators are in the cafeteria and spread out. There are places on that campus, as you well know, that we can't always keep eyes on kids 100% of the time. And so they probably, I'm sure that did happen. And we're going to just do our best to keep the kids spread out and respecting the social distance. And they probably were eating, because I remember looking over there, seeing the news camera, seeing the kids sitting on the wall, and I knew it was lunchtime.
Yeah, it's I know it's difficult to always keep students doing what they're supposed to do, and if it does come to a point to go all distance learning, you guys have got a plan in place to make it happen. I
believe we do. Yes.
Okay.
With community support.
Yeah, that's right. And you're gonna be number one I'm calling to.
Well, we just appreciate you being here with us tonight, Dr. Spence. We know that the health and safety of our students should not be a political issue. It's about what we need to do to take care of our students and our community. So we really appreciate you joining with us tonight and having Audrey and Dr. Johnson being able to ask questions. And thank you for taking questions from the community. So we really appreciate that.
That's not a problem. Anytime, Julie. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Thank you. So before everybody else leaves, I want to remind everybody that the Glen Dems are having their drive-through dinner for democracy on August 29th. It's our alternative to our normal annual dinner. We will have DJs. You can drive through and pick up a dinner from Lady K's, and we'll have swag bags with Biden buttons and Biden stickers. Our Biden-Harris yard signs are on the way, but they may not be here before the 29th, but we've got those coming. We're going to have local and some state U.S. Senate candidates there. We're going to be masked up, waving, and celebrating this awesome Democratic convention we had this week, and raising money to get Democrats elected up and down the ballot. So if you want to join us, we can drop the link in the chat room. You can also go to glendems.org Facebook page or website and purchase tickets there. We also have our Win the Whole Dem thing t-shirts, Battleground Georgia, that are available to buy. So we're excited and fired up. We also need volunteers to start phone banking and texting with us. We have our candidate slate cards available to tell you all the Democrats that are running, and those will be available in the community starting tomorrow. So we are excited about what's going on. Remember to request your absentee ballot application now and mail it right away. If you have not mailed it in by October 1st, go ahead and take it in, fill it out, take it to Gloucester Street and put it in the drop box. If you need a ride to do that, you let us know, because we want your vote to count. We want everybody's voice to be heard. So we're excited and fired up, and I just thank everybody for coming tonight. And let's get Audrey and Regina elected in November, and me too.
And Julie.
Thank you, Audrey. So thanks everybody for coming tonight, and let's go get them.